the little crowned heir who gave up her throne for love. The palace of Solara Prime floated above the blue world like a quiet crown. Its walls were made of clear crystal and silver metal, shining under the light of 3 suns. Inside that palace lived the youngest crowned heir in human history. Her name was Elia. She was small for her age, with dark eyes that watched everything and said little. Many thought she was weak. Now do you see what to a teen happened? Today's afternoon, many believed she was too soft to rule a star empire that stretched across hundreds of worlds. But no one had asked Elia what she saw when she looked at the stars. Elia had been crowned when she was only 7. Her parents had died in a sudden attack during a border war. The enemy was not a single species, but a powerful union of many alien races known as the Velis Accord. They ruled by fear and force. They believed humans were dangerous because humans did not surrender easily. After the death of her parents, the High Council placed the crown on Elia's head. It was a thin ring of dark metal, old and heavy with authority. From that day, Elia was no longer just a child. She was a symbol. The council ruled in her name. They spoke of duty, strength, and survival. They taught Elia how to sit straight, how to stay silent, how to listen without showing emotion. They taught her history filled with wars, betrayals, and victories. They taught her that love was a weakness rulers could not afford. Elia listened. She remembered everything. But she did not always agree. At night, when the palace grew quiet, Elia would stand near the tall windows and look at the stars. She wondered how many lives existed beyond the cold lights. She wondered if enemies were born as enemies, or if something else made them that way. When Elia was 16, the council announced a major diplomatic exchange. The Velis Accord had agreed to send engineers and scholars to a neutral station. Humans would do the same. It was a fragile peace, built on fear rather than trust. The council decided Elia must attend. "She will be seen," said Councillor Marek, an old man with sharp eyes. "The galaxy must remember who leads humanity." Elia said nothing. She bowed her head and accepted the order. The station was called Orin's Reach. It floated alone in deep space, far from any planet. Its halls were wide and white, built for many shapes and sizes. Security drones hovered everywhere. Soldiers stood with weapons ready, fingers tense. Elia walked through the station with guards at her side. She wore simple royal clothes, dark blue and silver. The crown rested lightly on her head, but she felt its weight in her chest. Across the hall, alien delegates arrived. Some were tall and thin. Others moved on many limbs. Their eyes reflected fear, anger, and curiosity. Elia noticed that none of them looked proud. They looked controlled. During the exchange, Elia was asked to sit and observe. She listened as council members spoke of trade routes and ceasefires. The words felt empty. Her eyes moved instead to a small figure standing near the far wall. He was not like the others. He was shorter, with gray skin and 2 dark eyes. His clothes were simple and worn. A metal band circled his neck, glowing faintly. Elia had seen such devices in reports. Control collars. He was a forced worker. Elia frowned. She leaned slightly toward her guard. "Who is that one?" The guard hesitated. Engineer. His name is Kale. He belongs to a minor species under the Accord. Belongs, Elia repeated softly. The guard said nothing. As the talks continued, an alarm suddenly rang through the station. Red lights flashed. Shouts filled the hall. A blast shook the floor, throwing people to the ground. "Elia, move!" the guard shouted. But Elia's eyes were locked on Kale. The blast had broken part of the wall. Smoke filled the air. In the chaos, Kale had fallen. His control collar sparked wildly. He screamed and clutched his neck. Without thinking, Elia ran. "Stop!" her guard shouted, but she did not listen. She reached Kale and knelt beside him. Her hand shook as she touched the collar. It burned hot under her fingers. "I cannot remove it," Kale gasped. "It will kill me!" Elia looked around. A fallen security tool lay nearby. She grabbed it and pressed it against the collar's lock. Sparks flew. Pain shot through her arm, but she held on. With a sharp crack, the collar broke. Kale collapsed, breathing hard. The guards reached them moments later. Weapons aimed, orders shouted. Elia stood slowly and faced them. Smoke swirled around her. Her crown caught the red light. "He is under my protection," she said. The guards froze. Later, when the station was secured, Elia was taken to a private chamber. The council appeared on the screen, their faces dark with anger. "You risked your life," Councilor Marek said. "For an enemy." "He was unarmed," Elia replied. "He was dying." "That is not your concern." Elia met his eyes. "It is my concern," the council argued among themselves. Finally, they ordered Kale to be placed under human control, and Elia to return to Solara Prime immediately. Kale was held in a small medical room. Elia visited him once, under heavy guard. "Why did you help me?" Kale asked quietly. Elia considered the question. "Because I could." Kale studied her. "You are different from the others." "So are you," she said. When Elia returned to the palace, the atmosphere had changed. The halls felt colder. The servants avoided her eyes. The council summoned her less often. Rumors spread through human space. The crowned heir had saved an enemy. Some called her foolish. Others called her dangerous. The Velos Accord responded quickly. A message reached Solara Prime. A human royal had interfered with Accord property. A bounty was placed, not on Elia's head, but on the unknown human who had broken a control collar. The council met in secret. They spoke of isolation, of control, of protection. Elia stood alone in her chamber that night, staring at the stars. For the first time since she was crowned, she felt something new. Not fear, but choice. Far away, in a guarded facility, Kale looked at his freed neck and wondered why a human ruler had risked everything for him. And across the galaxy, forces began to move. Slowly, quietly, toward a future no one had planned. The orbital academy was far from Solara Prime, circling a dead world with gray clouds of dust. It was meant to protect Elia, or at least to keep her under control. Soldiers patrolled the halls and scanners watched every movement. The academy was quiet, cold, and filled with lessons that made her feel trapped. Elia had expected strict rules and lessons in strategy and diplomacy, but every day felt heavier than the last. The instructors spoke of war, of obedience, of power. They reminded her constantly that she was the heir, the crown, the symbol. She listened. She learned, but her mind wandered to Kale. He was still under guard on another station. The council had said it was for his safety, but Elia knew better. Kale was an enemy. The council wanted to make an example of her loyalty to humanity, while showing the Accord that humans would not forgive disobedience. At night, when the lights dimmed, Elia found ways to escape the strict rules. She wandered the academy in the corridors that were nearly empty. Sometimes she would look out the windows, watching stars pass slowly by. She imagined herself outside the walls, free, standing beside Kale instead of locked inside a cage of silver and glass. One night, she took a risk. She entered the Academy's communication room, avoiding the scanners by moving slowly and using shadows. She hacked a private channel, the small lights blinking under her fingers, her heart pounding. "Kyle," she whispered into the microphone. There was a pause. Then a faint, careful voice replied, "Elia, how did you? I had to see you," she said softly.
"Are you safe?" Kale's voice sounded tired.
"Not really. I am watched constantly. They think I betrayed my people. They will punish me if I speak too much." "I don't care about them," Elia said. "I only care about you." Kale laughed quietly, a short, bitter sound.
"You could be executed for this. I would rather die than watch them hurt you," she said. Their secret meetings continued in the hidden channels.
Elia learned more about the Velis Accord from Kale. He explained how they were divided, how fear ruled their leaders, and how their people often suffered in silence. He told her about a weapon being built to destroy human colonies, a weapon that could wipe out billions in hours. Elia felt anger and fear, but she also felt determination. She realized that being crowned meant little if she could not protect those she loved, including those the Council called enemies. Meanwhile, the Academy introduced new students. One of them, a human girl named Isha, was clever and quiet, a healer by nature. She noticed Elia's secret sadness and spoke softly when they were alone.
"You are different," Isha said once.
"You care about more than the throne." Elia nodded but said nothing. She could not risk anyone knowing her plans. Isha became a quiet friend, often bringing her supplies or reading materials. With Isha's help, Elia gathered small bits of information about Kale's location and condition. One morning, news arrived that the Council planned to execute Kale publicly, to remind the galaxy that no one could defy human authority. Elia's heart froze. She could not stand it. She had to act. At night, she left the Academy for the first time without permission. The corridors were dark, lit only by emergency lights. She moved silently, avoiding cameras and soldiers. Every step made her more aware of the danger. When she reached the hangar, she found a small ship that was unguarded for a moment. Its engines hummed quietly. She knew it was meant for Academy personnel, not for escape. But she could not think of the Council or the consequences. Only Kale mattered. The ship took off, moving silently through the black space around the dead world. Elia's hands gripped the controls, her mind focused, her heart full of hope and fear. Somewhere in the galaxy, Kale waited. She would reach him, no matter what. Kale, meanwhile, had been moved to a workstation on the outer edges of the Accord fleet. He was repairing machinery under strict watch, a collar of control still lightly glowing on his neck. When the signal reached him, he paused, recognizing her voice instantly. "Elia?" he whispered. "I am coming," she said. For hours he waited, eyes scanning the stars, listening for the ship's approach. When it arrived, the small craft slipped past the sensors, almost invisible. Elia landed near the station, her heart pounding. She saw Kale, and for a moment, everything else faded. But escape was never easy. Guards noticed the small ship leaving the Academy's orbit. They sent pursuit drones, small but deadly. Red lights blinked on the station as alarms rang. Elia grabbed Kale's arm, and they ran toward the ship, dodging beams of light and guards shouting orders. The corridor seemed endless. Elia felt every second as though it stretched into eternity. When they finally reached the ship, Kale hesitated. If we are caught, he began. I will not let them hurt you, Elia said, her eyes firm. They climbed inside. The ship's engines roared to life. Red lights from the station flashed across the metal hull. They shot into space, moving faster than the patrols could react. As they flew, KL held her hand. Why risk everything for me? He asked. Elia looked at him. Because I can, she said simply. Their journey took them through uncharted sectors. They hid in asteroid fields and near abandoned colonies. Kale shared knowledge of Accord patrol routes, their weaknesses, and the gaps in their scanners. Elia learned quickly, adapting to new skills with a mind sharper than many trained soldiers. They stopped at a small human colony forgotten by the Council, a place where humans survived without crowns or rules. The people there were wary, simple, and kind. They helped Elia and Kale, offering shelter and supplies. Elia realized that humanity could exist without crowns, without armies, and still survive. During one quiet night on the colony, Elia spoke to Kale.
I do not want the throne, she admitted.
Not if it means following rules I cannot respect. Kale looked at her, surprised. Then what do you want? I want to choose, she said. I want to protect those I care about and make my own decisions. Kale smiled faintly. Then you are stronger than anyone with a crown. Their peace did not last long. The Council had issued a bounty, and human soldiers hunted them. The Accord also pursued them, seeking Kale. Every jump through space brought new dangers. Patrols, mercenaries, and scouts were everywhere. One night a fleet of Accord ships appeared near the colony. Alarms blared. Elia and Kale ran to their ship, fighting panic as the enemy fired. Explosions shook the ground. The colony's buildings trembled. Elia pushed the engines to maximum, weaving between asteroids to escape. Kale helped navigate using his knowledge of Accord tactics. The fleet followed relentlessly. Their survival depended not just on speed, but on clever thinking. During the chase, Elia realized something important. The galaxy was larger than she had been taught. Alliances were fragile. Fear could be stronger than loyalty. And humans, small, fragile, emotional, could still be the most dangerous species if they chose to fight with heart and mind together. When they finally escaped, they found a small hidden system with no known maps. The suns were dim, the planets silent. Here they could rest, repair the ship, and plan their next move. Elia looked at Kale, tired but alive. We survived, she said quietly. Yes, Kale replied, but it will not be easy. You will always be hunted as long as the Council controls the fleet. I do not care, she said. I have you, and I will protect you, even if I lose everything else. Kale smiled faintly, his dark eyes softening. And I will stand by you, even if I die trying. The stars around them glimmered. Elia realized that she had changed. She was no longer just the crowned heir. She was a human who could choose, who could love, who could fight for what mattered. But the Council would not forget. The Accord would not forgive. And somewhere in the galaxy, the weapon they had learned about was still being built, a silent threat that could destroy billions. Elia held Kale's hand. They had fled, survived, and learned to trust each other. But the war, the crown, and the impossible decisions awaited them. The galaxy was not ready for humans who chose love and freedom over power. And Elia knew, deep inside, that her journey was only beginning. Every star in the sky seemed to whisper her name, as if the galaxy itself waited to see what the little crowned heir would do next. Elia and KL traveled farther from known space than they had ever been. Their small ship, patched and repaired with materials from abandoned colonies, hummed quietly as it moved through dark corridors of asteroids and empty planets. Each jump through hyperspace felt like stepping into a world no map had ever marked. They discovered human colonies that had survived without crowns or armies, far from the influence of Solara Prime. The people were simple, often afraid, but they had something the crown never gave: freedom. They taught Elia and Kale how to live quietly, how to fix engines with almost nothing, how to grow food under alien suns, and how to trust each other without rules forcing them to obey. One colony was small, only a few dozen people, hidden in a hollowed asteroid. Its leader was an old woman named Sira, with hair the color of dust and eyes sharp with life. She welcomed Elia and Kael cautiously, but when she learned of their story, she offered help. "You are running," Sira said, "but running does not solve anything. You must learn to fight your own way." Elia listened. She had been taught strategy, history, and control, but Sira taught her patience, improvisation, and listening. The colony's engineers showed her old human technology, long forgotten by the Council. Kale worked beside them, his knowledge of alien systems blending with the human methods. Together, they built devices and defenses, learning to hide in ways that Solara Prime would not have approved. While Elia learned, news reached them. Scouts from both the Council and the Velis Accord were moving through nearby systems. Some came disguised as traders, others as explorers. The galaxy was small, and humans and aliens wanted to hunt. Every contact brought risk. During one quiet evening, as two suns set behind jagged asteroids, Elia spoke to Kale. "I wonder if the Council even remembers me," she said softly. "Or do they think the heir is dead?" Kale shook his head. "They do not forget you. You are a symbol they cannot control. That makes you dangerous." Elia thought of the crown waiting on Solara Prime, a symbol she did not want. And I do not want it. Not if it means following rules that make me a weapon. Kale looked at her. "Then what do you want, Elia?" "I want to choose," she said. "I want to be human first, to fight when I must, to love when I can." The colony taught them more than survival. They met humans who had lived with alien neighbors in peace, children who played among strange creatures, farmers who traded without armies. Elia saw that humanity could be strong without fear, and clever without crowns. She realized that the Council had never taught her the full story of their people. Their time on the colony was interrupted one morning by the arrival of a fleet. Small human ships appeared first, scanning the region. Soldiers came in to investigate the colony. They were loyal to Solara Prime, and rumors of the heir's betrayal had reached them. Elia and Kaal had little choice. They fled again, leaving behind the colony that had given them shelter. They used asteroid fields and abandoned wormholes to hide. But the human soldiers were fast learners, tracking subtle energy signatures. During one escape, a ship clipped the side of theirs. Sparks flew. Elia fought to maintain control. Kale helped steer, his hands steady despite the chaos. "They will never stop hunting us," he said. "No," Elia said, "they will not. But we can survive. And we can learn." They traveled to another system, almost forgotten by both humans and the Velis Accord. Here, they found ruins of a colony destroyed long ago by war. The silence of the place was heavy. Broken towers and blackened streets told stories of fear and violence. Elia walked through the ruins. "This is what happens when people lose control," she said. When rulers cannot protect, they destroy. That will never be me. Kale followed her, quiet. And you will not be, he said. You are already different. In the ruins, they found Thomas, a human pilot who had abandoned service with the fleet years before. He was rough, older, and cautious, but he knew the galaxy, its dangers, and its hidden paths. Thomas agreed to guide them through areas where both human and alien patrols moved quickly. Together, the three traveled farther, jumping from hidden point to hidden point. They avoided major routes, hid in asteroid belts, and even disguised their ship as an abandoned cargo vessel. Each day brought new dangers, but also new discoveries. They found human colonies that had made peace with small alien species, towns where children of mixed heritage played, and communities that taught them how humans could survive without fear. Elia learned to fight in these months, not just with weapons, but with strategy, patience, and empathy. She began to see the galaxy differently. Humans were not weak, even if small. Humans could survive, adapt, and lead without crowns. They could outthink and outlast stronger enemies. One night, while drifting near a gas giant, Kale warned her. The weapon is still being built. The Velis Accord will finish it if we do not act, and the Council will not stop them, not while they want control. Elia frowned. Then we will act. But we cannot be soldiers. We cannot be rulers. We must be humans first. Kale looked at her, understanding. Then we fight differently. We fight smart. We fight together. As they planned, they received a signal. It was faint, hidden, and untraceable. The voice belonged to Loon, a child born between species in a distant colony. Loon had information about secret routes through the Accord fleet and about weaknesses in patrols. The child's presence reminded Elia that the galaxy was full of surprises and that even the smallest could make a difference. Elia realized the truth. To survive, she must rely on more than strength. She needed friends, allies, and trust. She needed humans to remember that their value was not in fear or power, but in choice. Their journey became a series of escapes, learning missions, and small victories. Every time they avoided capture, every time they learned something new about the Accord or the Council, they grew stronger. Their bond deepened. Kale was no longer just the enemy she saved. He was her companion, teacher, and equal. But danger always waited. One day, a small fleet of Velis Accord ships found their hidden system. Elia's ship barely escaped, weaving through asteroid fields and using every trick she had learned. The engines strained, warning lights flashing. Kale helped navigate. Thomas handled communications, and Elia controlled the ship with steady hands. They survived, but barely. The fleet passed, leaving a warning. The Accord had marked them as fugitives, a human and alien alliance that could not be forgiven. Elia sat quietly after the escape, staring at the stars. "We cannot stop running forever," she said.
Now! Kale agreed, but we can choose how we fight.
We can choose who we protect. Elia thought about the crown waiting on Solara Prime. She realized it meant nothing if she continued to follow rules that did not match her heart. She understood that her strength as a human was her ability to choose, to act, and to love. They continued to travel, moving through hidden systems and forgotten colonies. They gathered knowledge, allies, and skills. They learned that humans could survive without crowns, and that their compassion, courage, and creativity made them stronger than any weapon. As months passed, the Council on Solara Prime grew restless. Rumors spread of the Heir who had vanished, saved an enemy, and now roamed the galaxy with an alien engineer. Some believed she was dead. Others feared her. The Velis Accord also responded. Patrols increased, ships were sent, and spies infiltrated hidden colonies. Elia and Kael had to remain constantly alert. Each day could bring capture, battle, or betrayal. Yet they pressed forward. Each new colony taught them something. Each new friend added strength. They discovered humans who had survived wars alone, aliens who had learned to trust humans, and places where fear had been replaced by careful cooperation. Elia began to understand the true meaning of leadership. It was not crowns, titles, or symbols. Leadership was action, responsibility, and courage. It was the ability to make choices, to protect, and to inspire. She could be a leader without being a ruler, strong without being feared, and human without being controlled. One quiet evening, Kael approached her. "Do you know why I stayed with you?" he asked. Elia shook her head. "Because you see humans differently. You see them as more than soldiers, more than rulers. You see what we can become." Elia smiled faintly. "And you see me differently?" Kael nodded. "I see the Heir I once feared is now the human I admire. You do not need a crown to change the galaxy." Elia looked out at the stars, thinking of the future. There would be battles, choices, and sacrifices ahead. But she was ready. She had learned to move without fear, to act without hesitation, and to choose what was right instead of what was expected. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, the Council and the Velis Accord waited, unaware that the little crowned heir they thought they controlled had already begun to change everything. The stars above seemed endless, silent witnesses to a journey that was only just beginning. Elia understood that power without compassion was nothing, and that humanity's true strength lay in its heart. With Kael and their new allies, she would face the coming storms. She would protect those who could not protect themselves. She would fight differently, not with fear, but with hope. And the galaxy, though unaware, would soon feel the weight of humans who had learned to survive, to love, and to choose. Elia's small ship drifted in the quiet darkness of a hidden system, far from any known trade routes. The engines hummed gently, a soft reminder that they were alive and moving. Kael sat beside her, his hands resting on the control panel, eyes scanning distant stars. They had traveled through countless systems, evading human and alien forces alike, but Elia knew their time was limited. The Council of Solara Prime would not forget her. They would send fleets, spies, and bounty hunters, and the Velis Accord would continue its search for the engineers she had saved. Their past choices had made them fugitives, and the galaxy did not forgive those who broke rules, even if the rules were unfair. Elia had spent long nights thinking about what she could do. She realized the threat they faced was greater than survival. The Velis Accord's weapon, capable of destroying entire human colonies, was nearly complete. If it was activated, billions of lives could end before anyone could stop it. And the Council, blinded by pride and fear, would not act. Kael noticed her silence. "You are thinking," he said softly, "about what comes next?" Elia nodded. "We cannot just run forever. We can survive, but the weapon, it will destroy everything we care about if no one stops it. And the Council will not stop it. They only care about control." Kael's jaw tightened. "Then we have to act. But we cannot go openly. We will be killed instantly if we are discovered." Elia considered their options. They had allies in hidden colonies, humans who had survived without crowns, aliens who had learned to trust humans, and a few former soldiers like Tamas who knew how to navigate dangerous systems. But none of these allies had the strength to face the Velis Accord fleet alone. I will not wait for them to die, Elia said. We must go back, not as rulers, not as soldiers, but as humans who can choose to protect life. That is all that matters. Kale looked at her with concern. You understand what this means. If you return, you will be arrested. The council will not forgive you. They will demand your head to prove their control. They will use you as an example. Elia's eyes were steady. I know, and I am ready. I cannot let fear control me. Not anymore. I will go back if it means stopping the weapon, even if it costs me everything. Their journey back to human space was dangerous. They avoided major trade lanes and used abandoned wormholes to hide from both human and Velis Accord fleets. Each jump through hyperspace felt tense, every small blip on the scanner a potential threat. Yet, they moved with purpose. Elia had decided she would face the council and demand action, even if it meant she could lose her freedom, her title, or her life. When they approached Solara Prime's outer orbit, alarms flared in the ship. Human patrols had detected their signature. Kale immediately took control, guiding the ship through dense asteroid fields and using debris to mask their movement. Tomas assisted with navigation, and Elia monitored communications for any way to avoid direct confrontation. The fleet passed close, scanning, and then moved on, unaware of their exact position. Elia exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders for a moment. We are close, she said. We cannot wait any longer. We must go inside. Kael's eyes widened. You want to return to the capital? To the council? You know what will happen.
Yes, Elia replied. I will surrender.
If they want to punish me, let them. But I will not let the weapon activate. They entered Solara Prime's orbit under a cloak, a device that hid the ship from most sensors. The capital city stretched below them, shining towers of silver and glass reflecting the suns. The council would be watching, waiting to see what had become of the young heir. When they landed in a restricted hangar, Elia stepped out, her uniform clean, her crown removed, and held in her hands. She did not hide her presence. Soldiers rushed toward her, weapons raised. Elia held her hands out, showing she meant no harm. I am here, she said. I surrender.
But I demand action. The Velis Accord is building a weapon.
It will destroy billions. You will act, or humanity will die. The soldiers froze, unsure how to react. They had orders to protect the council, to arrest her as a traitor, yet here she stood, calm, speaking as though she owned nothing and yet everything. Within the hour, Elia was brought before the council. Their faces were stern, expressions heavy with anger and disbelief. Councilor Marek spoke first. You disobeyed orders. You endangered human security. You saved an enemy and brought them into our space. Do you understand the consequences? Elia looked directly at him. I understand. I also understand the threat the Velis Accord poses. You are blind if you do not act. I came back to give you the chance to do what is right. If you do not, the galaxy will suffer. The council argued among themselves. Some were furious at her disobedience, demanding execution. Others hesitated, knowing her words carried truth. Meanwhile, Kale was brought into a separate chamber, still under guard, but alive. Elia's presence ensured he was safe. For now. Finally, the council made a decision. They would not act against the Velis Accord unless Elia took command of the fleet personally. The crown, her authority, was required to access the weapon's location codes. Elia realized the council was willing to sacrifice billions to protect their own power.
I will take the fleet, she said quietly.
but not as a ruler.
I will not claim the throne. I will act as a human who chooses to save lives, nothing more. Counselor Marek's eyes narrowed. You would dare disobey, then lead? I would dare protect, Elia said. The council grudgingly accepted. Elia, Kael, and a small group of trusted allies were granted temporary access to the fleet. They left the capital, moving quickly toward the secret location where the weapon was being built. Elia had no desire for glory. She only wanted to prevent the deaths that would come if they delayed. The journey to the weapon's site was filled with danger. Accord patrols, sensors, and automated defenses had to be avoided. Every step required careful planning, teamwork, and trust. Elia had become a skilled leader, not by training but by necessity. She guided their small team with calm determination, always considering both strategy and compassion. When they arrived at the site, the weapon was massive, a structure of black metal and glowing energy fields. Drones patrolled the perimeter, scanning for intruders. Kael studied the designs, noting weaknesses in the energy flow and structural integrity. Tomas and other allies prepared their tools. Elia formulated a plan to infiltrate without triggering alarms. Under the cover of darkness, they moved in. Elia led Kael and the others through narrow corridors, avoiding patrols and security beams. Her small size and quick thinking allowed her to slip through places where soldiers could not follow. Each step brought them closer to the core of the weapon, each step heavier with the knowledge that a single mistake could cost them their lives and billions more. When they reached the control center, Elia accessed the systems using the Crown's authority codes. The energy of the weapon pulsed, ready to activate. She felt the weight of the moment, the responsibility of billions on her shoulders. She did not falter. Her hands moved over the controls, shutting down the weapon and dismantling its systems. Kael worked beside her, guiding her through alien technology she had never seen before. Tomas and the others handled security measures, keeping patrols away. The mission was precise, dangerous, and exhausting. Every decision mattered. Every second counted. Finally, the weapon was neutralized. The energy fields collapsed. Systems went dark, and the facility fell silent. Elia took a deep breath. It is done, she said softly. No one will die today. Kael smiled, relief in his dark eyes. You did it. You saved them all. Elia shook her head. Not me alone. We did it together. Their victory was not complete. The council would still judge her. The Accord would still seek revenge, and new threats would arise. But for the first time, Elia felt she had done something truly meaningful. She had acted not as a crown, not as a ruler, but as a human who chose love, compassion, and life over power. As they left the weapon site, Elia looked at Kael. I will not take the throne, she said. I cannot.
My place is not to rule, but to protect, to choose.
Kael nodded, understanding. Then we will face whatever comes next together. Not as rulers, not as soldiers, but as humans. Elia smiled faintly. The galaxy was dangerous, unpredictable, and full of challenges. But she had learned that humans could survive without fear, that they could act with courage and heart, and that even the smallest choices could change everything. The stars stretched endlessly before them. The journey was far from over. New dangers would come, new decisions would have to be made, and the council would still demand obedience. Yet Elia was ready. She had chosen her path. She had chosen life, love, and humanity over crowns and control. And somewhere in the galaxy, the echoes of her choice began to spread, quietly, powerfully, reminding everyone that humans were not weak, even when they walked away from power. Elia returned to human space, not as a crown or ruler, but as a human who had chosen to act. She carried no crown on her head, no authority beyond the decisions she had made. Yet the Council of Solara Prime awaited her with eyes sharp as blades, their judgment heavy. Soldiers lined the streets of the capital, scanning the sky for ships that might bring new threats. The palace shimmered under the light of the suns, its walls reflecting both glory and fear. The council's anger had not faded. Councillor Marek, still stern and unyielding, stood at the head of the chamber when she arrived. "You disobeyed us," he said, voice cold. "You endangered human security. You brought an enemy into our space. You have no right to stand here." Elia looked at him steadily. "I am not here to claim the throne. I am here to prevent the destruction the Velis Accord would bring. The weapon is gone. Billions are alive because I acted. That is all I want, nothing more." Some members of the council murmured. Others scowled. The room was heavy with tension. Elia's choice to act, to save lives without permission, had fractured their sense of control. For centuries, the council had ruled through fear, loyalty, and symbols of power. Now, one young human had challenged all of that. Kale stood beside her, silent but present. He had been granted temporary freedom because Elia demanded it. His presence was a reminder that the galaxy was not divided by species alone. It was divided by fear and courage. Councillor Marek's voice rose. "You claim to act for humanity, yet you disobey orders. You risk everything for one alien. How can you bleed?" Elia met his gaze. "I do not seek to lead. I seek to protect. Leadership is not a title. It is action. And anyone who fears to act for life is not leading. They are failing." The council hesitated. Some knew she was right, but admitting it would mean accepting that their power was not absolute. Others feared losing control over the fleet, the colonies, and the symbols they cherished. In that moment, a message arrived from the outer colonies. Scouts reported that the Velis Accord was preparing a counterattack. Even though the weapon had been dismantled, the aliens did not forgive those who had interfered. Their fleets were moving toward human systems, ready to strike. Elia took a deep breath. "Then we act," she said quietly. "Not because I am the heir, not because I wear a crown, but because we can save lives. Together, we fight to protect, not to dominate." The council struggled, but ultimately they allowed her to take temporary command of a small fleet. She did not ask for glory. She did not claim authority. She acted as a human who had learned to value life above power. With Kale and Thomas at her side, she prepared the fleet for the coming conflict. The ships were smaller than those of the Velis Accord, but Elia had learned to use strategy, patience, and cleverness to her advantage. She coordinated her human allies and former soldiers who understood the importance of choice over orders. They moved quietly through asteroid fields, hiding from sensors, and approached the enemy fleet. Elia had studied the designs and tactics of the Accord for months. She knew where their weaknesses lay, and she planned to strike not with brute force, but with precision and intelligence. The battle began without warning. Alien ships emerged from the shadows, their weapons glowing. Human ships fired back, shields flaring. Elia stayed calm, guiding her fleet with careful decisions. "Focus on their engines, not their hulls," she instructed. "Disable movement first, then we neutralize their weapons." Kale worked beside her, adjusting energy fields, rerouting power to critical systems, and disabling traps. Tomas coordinated with human pilots, using knowledge of hidden paths and asteroid cover to protect their fleet. Elia's strategy was not about dominance. It was about survival. Hours passed. Ships were damaged, some lost, yet the fleet moved as one. Elia's calm and clarity kept her allies focused. She avoided unnecessary destruction, targeting only what was needed to neutralize the threat. Slowly, the Accord fleet began to retreat. Their ships were crippled, systems failing, energy depleted. When the battle ended, Elia and her small fleet remained. The enemy had been repelled without massive loss of life. Human colonies were safe. The galaxy had seen that strength was not in fear, but in courage, intelligence, and restraint. News of the victory spread quickly. Across Solara Prime, humans whispered of the heir who had returned, not to claim power, but to save lives. Some council members were forced to acknowledge her skill. Others muttered quietly, fearful of what it meant for their authority. Elia returned to the capital once more, but this time without expectation. She did not come to be praised or to rule. She came to make a choice, visible to all. She stood before the council, holding the crown in her hands. The symbol of centuries of power, pride, and fear was hers, but she did not place it on her head. "I will not take this crown," she said clearly. "I will not rule. I will act where I must, as a human first. This crown does not make me strong. My choices make me strong. Humanity's strength is not in domination, but in courage, compassion, and the will to protect life. The crown will remain here, empty, as a reminder that power without responsibility is meaningless." The council was silent. Some stared in disbelief. Others murmured, realizing that their symbols had been stripped of meaning. The soldiers lowered their weapons. The people watching from the city squares felt a new sense of hope. Kale stepped forward. "You have done what few could. You have shown that humanity can act with heart, intelligence, and courage. Not because of fear, not because of orders, but because it is right." Elia nodded. "We will face new threats. The galaxy will not remain quiet, but I have learned that humans can survive, even without crowns, even without fear. We can choose. That is our strength." The council could not argue. They could not force her to wear the crown. The throne remained empty. For the first time in history, the symbol of ultimate power in human space was nothing more than a relic, a reminder that the right to rule does not make one human. In the weeks that followed, Elia and Kale worked to strengthen human colonies and alliances. They trained those who wished to defend themselves, taught strategy that relied on cleverness and empathy, and built trust with alien communities who had once feared humans. They acted as humans who chose to protect life, not as rulers seeking dominion. Tomas continued to guide them, helping navigate fleets and systems. Loon, the child born between species, spread messages of hope and cooperation, showing the galaxy that humans could be allies, not conquerors. Elia learned from every community, every colony, and every encounter. She grew not in power, but in understanding and wisdom. Her story became a legend told quietly across the stars. Not of a crown, not of an heir, but of a human who chose love and life over fear and domination. Children in distant colonies learned of her bravery. Soldiers and scholars debated her methods, and leaders wondered if humans could ever be trusted as rulers again, or if they would be trusted for something greater, their hearts. Yet Elia did not seek fame. She did not seek titles. She only acted day by day, choice by choice. And through these actions, the galaxy began to understand something new, that humanity's true power was in its ability to act with conscience, to sacrifice personal safety for others, and to walk away from absolute authority while still protecting life. The throne of Solara Prime remained empty. The council continued to exist, but their authority was no longer absolute. Human colonies began to communicate directly with each other. Alien species who had feared humans now watched them carefully, unsure whether to trust, but compelled to respect them. Alia and Kael moved among these colonies, quietly, teaching, helping, guiding. They faced new challenges daily: rogue fleets, natural disasters, small conflicts, but they faced them as humans first, united by trust, courage, and love, rather than crowns or commands. One quiet night, Elia looked at the stars with Kael beside her. "Do you think they will ever forgive me?" she asked. Kael smiled faintly. "Forgive you?" "They may never forgive, but they will respect you. You have shown them a different kind of strength, a human strength." Elia nodded. "Then it is enough. I do not need crowns, soldiers, or orders. I only need the choice to act." The stars stretched endlessly above them. The galaxy was full of unknown dangers, unseen threats, and challenges yet to come. But Elia understood something the Council never would. Humanity's true power was not in ruling others, but in choosing to protect, even when it was hardest. And somewhere beyond the borders of known space, new challenges waited. But humans had learned a lesson that would shape the future. A lesson that one small human who gave up her throne for love and choice had made visible for all to see. The throne remained empty, shining quietly under the suns. It was a symbol of freedom, hope, and the courage to act. And Elia, the little human who had once been the crown, now walked the galaxy not as a ruler, but as a protector, a teacher, and a witness to what humans could choose to be. Elia stood at the edge of a cliff on a quiet green world, far from the stars she had once known. The air was fresh and cool, carrying the scent of plants and water. She had traveled through war, danger, and betrayal. Yet here, for the first time, she felt the calm of a life she had chosen. Beside her, Kael adjusted the small pack of supplies he always carried. Their ship rested in a hidden valley below, repaired and ready. But they had no plans to leave just yet. The galaxy was changing. The Council of Solara Prime still existed, but their power was fractured. Colonies communicated directly. Alliances shifted, and humans began to understand that true strength lay not in crowns or fear, but in choice and courage. Elia had set this in motion, but the work was far from over. Kael looked at her. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had taken the throne?" Elia shook her head. "I would have been trapped. I would have ruled with fear, even if I tried not to. And the weapon we destroyed, I would never have known it until it was too late. Being crowned does not make you wise. Choice makes you wise." Kael nodded. "You have changed the galaxy, not through power, but through courage. That is stronger than any fleet or weapon." Elia smiled faintly. "I only did what I had to do. I could not ignore the lives that would have been lost, and I could not ignore you." Kael's eyes softened. "You risked everything for me, and I would do it again," Elia said. "Because we are human, and humans survive when they care enough to act." Their journey had taught them much. They had learned to navigate uncharted space, evade fleets, and live in harmony with colonies that trusted them. They had met humans and aliens who had suffered under war and oppression, and they had shown them a new way to live, through cooperation, intelligence, and compassion rather than fear. Yet peace was never complete. Reports arrive regularly of rogue fleets, minor conflicts, and systems still under threat. Even without the crown, Elia found herself called upon. She did not command by right, but by action. Colonies sought her advice, requested her guidance, and sometimes begged for protection. Elia understood that leadership without a throne was harder. There were no clear rules, no armies to order, no symbols of authority. She acted by trust, by example, and by courage. It was exhausting, dangerous, but also fulfilling in ways a crown could never provide. One day, a fleet of Velis Accord ships appeared near a human colony. They were smaller than before, cautious after previous defeats, but determined. The colony had few defenses. Messages reached Elia and Kale. The people were terrified. Many were children and elders. Elia looked at Kale. "We have to help. They cannot wait for the council or anyone else. We must act now." Kale nodded. "Then we do it our way. No crowns, no orders, just humans protecting humans and their friends." They approached the fleet carefully, using asteroid belts and hidden paths to avoid detection. Elia coordinated the small fleet of human ships that had rallied to her cause. Pilots who had once served the crown now followed her guidance freely, without fear or expectation of reward. Their loyalty was earned through trust and action. The battle was tense. The Accord ships were swift and skilled, but Elia used strategy rather than brute force. She directed her ships to disable engines first, confuse sensors, and cut off supply lines. Kale assisted, guiding energy weapons to overload without destroying the ships entirely. They fought to neutralize the threat, not to destroy life unnecessarily. Hours passed. Explosions shook the void. Lasers flashed and alarms rang across both fleets. Elia's calm, precise commands kept her allies focused. They worked as one, moving in coordination that no single ruler could impose through fear. Slowly, the Accord ships began to retreat, their attack failing. The human colony was saved without massive loss of life. Children ran freely, elders returned to homes, and farmers went back to fields. Elia and Kale watched from above, relief washing over them. The galaxy had seen that strength was not in dominance, but in courage, cleverness, and compassion. In the days that followed, Elia visited several colonies. She did not rule them, but she taught them to protect themselves, to make choices, and to survive with intelligence and humanity. Her name spread quietly across the stars, not as a ruler, but as a protector, a human who chose life over fear. She met new allies along the way. Rena, a healer who had cared for victims of war across 3 systems. Torin, a pilot who had escaped the Velis Accord's fleet and joined humans freely. And Mira, a young engineer who could repair ships with almost nothing. Each added skill and courage to their mission, creating a network of humans and trusted aliens who acted together without crowns or commands. Elia realized that the galaxy was beginning to change. Colonies no longer waited for the council. Humans and aliens began to work together, protecting one another and sharing knowledge. Fear no longer ruled entirely. Hope had begun to spread quietly, like light through a dark sky. One evening, Elia and Kale sat on the deck of their ship, watching distant suns rise over an unfamiliar planet. The galaxy was calm in that moment, peaceful for the first time since she had been crowned as a child. "Do you think it will last?" Kale asked. Elia smiled. "Nothing lasts forever, but we have shown that choice can survive, that courage can survive, that humans can survive, even without crowns." Kale reached out and took her hand. You gave up a throne for love and choice, and now the galaxy listens. Elia nodded. I did not do it for glory. I did it because it was right. But yes, now the galaxy can see a different way to live. Perhaps others will choose it too. The stars above them shimmered, silent witnesses to the path they had taken. Elia knew dangers would return. Fleets could strike again. The Bellis Accord could rebuild. Rogue elements could rise within human space. But she also knew that humans, when freed to choose, were stronger than any weapon, any crown, or any fear. In that moment, she understood her journey fully. She had been small, weak, and uncertain. She had been the little crowned heir, expected to obey and follow rules she did not believe in. Yet she had chosen her own path. She had saved lives, united allies, and changed the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be human. Kale squeezed her hand. What will you do now? Elia looked at him, her eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. We continue, we protect, we teach, we act. We will go where we are needed, and we will do what is right. The crown is not mine. Humanity is. The galaxy awaited them, full of unknown worlds, dangers, and choices. Yet Elia felt no fear. She had learned that courage, wisdom, and compassion mattered more than symbols of power. She had learned that humans could survive, adapt, and thrive when they chose to act with heart. And so the little crowned heir who had given up her throne for love continued her journey, not as a ruler, not as a queen, but as a protector, a teacher, and a symbol of what humans could be. Across the stars, colonies grew stronger, alliances formed, and hope spread quietly, powered by the courage of one human who dared to choose life over fear. Her story became legend, not written in books or displayed in palaces, but carried in the hearts of those who witnessed her courage. Children whispered her name. Pilots shared tales of her bravery. Soldiers remembered the human who acted without orders, whose strength lay not in a crown, but in conscience and choice. The throne of Solara Prime remained empty, a silent symbol of the galaxy's understanding. Authority without responsibility had no power. The galaxy had learned that humans could act, choose, and survive without fear. Elia and Kael continued to travel, moving quietly among the stars. They faced dangers, aided the weak, and taught the strong. They had no army, no crown, no decree, only the choices they made and the lives they protected. The galaxy was wide, uncertain, and dangerous, yet it was filled with hope. Hope that humans could survive, that humans could act wisely, and that even one small human could change the course of countless lives. Elia looked at Kael and smiled. We did what we had to do. We survived. We changed something. Kael smiled back.
Yes, and the galaxy is better because of it.
Elia breathed deeply, feeling the wind of the new world around her, the quiet of life and choice. Then we continue, she said. Together, and as their ship lifted from the hidden valley, the stars stretched endlessly before them. A universe of possibilities awaited, and the little crowned heir who had given up her throne for love had finally found her place, not as a ruler, but as a human who chose courage, compassion, and hope above all. The galaxy was hers not by right, but by the choices she had made, and in that she was stronger than any crown could ever make her.